Hey everyone, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Casey. I am a technical recruiter with Signify Technology in Austin, Texas, and I am here today to share my mental health journey and story with you guys to kind of raise awareness for Suicide Prevention Month, kind of help with some of the things and initiatives that Signify has been doing, which I'm happy to take a part in. So yeah, I guess I can just start kind of from the beginning of my story. I have dealt with a generalized anxiety disorder for most of my life, but it wasn't diagnosed until 2016. So growing up, I just kind of always seemed a little bit more of a nervous, kind of worrier type of child. And it's funny because when you're 12 years old, you shouldn't really have to be worrying about a bunch of things. You feel like you're just kind of 12, you go to school, you play sports, you have your friends, and that's kind of life. But, for me, everything felt like life or death, or, I could be doing better at this, or I'm not doing enough of that, but I'm doing too much of this other thing. And it's just kind of every day about a lot of different things. So I started to go to talk therapy counseling when I was pretty young. I was like 13 when I think I officially started with my therapist, who I saw until I graduated high school. And that was really helpful. And it's not something that I talked about a lot with my friends. My mom and my family said not really to say anything, so I didn't ever really share that with anybody. When I moved away for college, I continued my talk therapy, which was great. My university offered, free help and assistance, so I was able to continue my kind of treatment there, and it was really helpful, seeing somebody like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and still had some of the same problems where it's just kind of every day. I feel like there's just everything is worst case scenario. I'm always thinking about, okay, well, there's this problem I'm having, it's going to be the worst case. The worst thing possible is going to happen. And, it's helpful having an unbiased third party like a counselor kind of, remind you that that is one outcome, but that's probably not going to be the outcome, and you just kind of have to keep that in the back of your head and just kind of remind yourself that it's probably not going to be the end of the world. So that was my college experience, and then in 2016 I moved to Austin, Texas, right after college for my first job. And I didn't know anybody here, so it was very much on my own, which was great and very exciting. And I had a couple, just stressful things happen with starting a new job, being alone without friends or family, anything that's really comfortable. So I got into a really great local practice here in Austin. And they're made up, they have a psychiatrist, and they have a bunch of different talk therapists, and then they have a psychologist as well. So this was actually different for me because this was the first time that I had ever been kind of tested for anything or actually diagnosed with anything. So I started with the psychologist, and she did a bunch of different types of tests, things that I, never really heard about. Some of the things that you see in movies, where you're kind of looking at the ink blot test, but, those types of things. And she, came back and said that I have, a generalized anxiety disorder, which is pretty common. And basically all that is just excessive, irrational worry that interferes with daily functioning. So sounds great, but basically there's just a lot of different things that can come from that. It can interfere with your sleeping and, just cause you constant worry, constant stress, and, irritability, things like that. And it probably happens to a lot of people. You're probably, maybe that you've experienced that before, but it was nice to kind of finally hear what it was that I had, so to speak, because my whole life it had just always been, okay, well, you're just always really stressed, you're always worried about something. But it was nice to kind of know what it was and, be able to do something with a diagnosis. So from there, I was able to talk to the psychiatrist and get hooked up with one of the counselors there and continue my talk therapy, which was super helpful with a diagnosis because it's a little bit different. You know, we worked on different techniques and working on kind of, you know, breathing techniques, or when you feel like you're kind of getting in that anxious space, different grounding techniques, which are really helpful, things that I had never done before with any of my other counselors because we just didn't know. So my advice is just that if you feel like you might be struggling or you don't know and you've never done anything before, a really good place to start is maybe with a psychologist and getting tested for what you think, you know, you might have, if it's depression or anxiety. I think that's, you know, super helpful because then you can, you know, figure out a treatment plan that works best for you, and your doctors will help you with that. So I think in general, it's hard to have a mental health issue or a struggle because a lot of people are struggling, and you'll never know because there's such a really bad stigma around talking about it. You know, you definitely don't talk about it in the workplace. That's what I was always told. So when Signify reached out and asked if I could help or wanted to be a part, I definitely, you know, was nervous about sharing this, but I really wanted to help because I think that so many people are probably struggling and we'll never know. And I think that's how things can escalate and get really, you know, to a point where maybe they didn't have to get to if you got help before that. So in general, I'm really happy to share my experience and talk about it, but I definitely, you know, I am kind of nervous, and, you know, I'm always happy to share my experience, but, you know, sometimes people just have the stigma around it. They think it's, you know, whatever happens in the movies, or it's just, yeah, it has to be really extreme for you to do something about it. But it doesn't, you know, always have to be like that, and you can manage it. You can live with it. It's not, you know, something that has to be this big, bad, crazy secret, because a lot of people are struggling. So you just never know. So that's why I think it's better to, you know, talk about it if you're comfortable talking about it, because you don't know what your story could do for somebody else or help somebody else. So I think there is a big stigma surrounding talking about it in the workplace too, because people might look at you as a little unstable or kind of a flight risk, or that you need help or need extra support, or that you can't take criticism or things like that. But a lot of the times people with you know, mental health struggles come off as the complete opposite, because they're overcompensating. So you come off as overconfident, and you're, you know, perfectionist, and you're trying very hard because you're trying to prove yourself, and you're stressed because this one thing might not be perfect. So you go to the extremes to make it perfect. So, you know, a lot of the times you might say that person doesn't look like they're struggling because they're overcompensating, but that's just because that's what their, you know, their mental health, you know, issue kind of does, and kind of triggers them to do that. So I think it's important to know and to support people if they do want to talk about it. You know, things that I have found help me are talking about it to my family and friends, and, you know, people that are close to me, so that they understand, because, you know, you still have good days and you have bad days, and it's okay to have bad days. I think you need to let yourself have the bad days, and just know that it's not the end of the world, and it, you know, it definitely gets better, but it is nice, you know, to have the support on those bad days. So I think that's, you know, super important. That's one of the biggest like takeaways for me, is that you're definitely still going to have bad days, but you're going to have really good days, and you're going to be able to handle those bad days even better and really well, because you know kind of what to do, since you're you know, going to treatments and you're talking to somebody, and, you know, people around you are supporting you. So that's why I think it's important to talk about. And, you know, outside of therapy and kind of, you know, getting diagnosed and what I do to continue my mental health, things that really help me is definitely my dog. So she's really helpful, just kind of gives you something to focus on, you know, get fresh air, go outside. It's a good excuse to do those things. And then just other than that, you know, working out is really important to me. It's a great outlet. I think running has also been a really good outlet for me and a lot of other people with, you know, any type of kind of struggle like this. So, you know, I think that's super helpful. I think that your physical health is just as important as your mental health. So I think both go hand in hand. And I think, you should prioritize both. And I think that definitely helps. I think they both help each other. So that's something that I would do. And then also just asking for support. It's really hard because a lot of people don't know how to support somebody with, a mental health struggle, or somebody that's going through depression or anxiety or is having a panic attack. A lot of people don't know what to do, but there's really good resources out there that they can read, and you can send them so that they can start helping you and changing their language and the way they say things and the questions they ask. But some people choose not to share their struggle, and that is what helps them. So it really does come down to what you feel the most comfortable with and how you feel, what kind of works for you. I think in general, you just kind of have to pay attention to your anxiety. Most importantly, if you do kind of have the anxiety and the depression, there's a reason why you get anxiety, and there's a reason why you worry about things. So if you are worried about something, it is a good way to kind of look inside and say, okay, I'm worried about this thing. And then, you kind of break it down from there. So it's still important to listen to, you're never ever going to just 100% get rid of your anxiety, but there's ways that you can use it to your advantage. And then, in general, I just think reach out to all the different, different things that are on online resources and doctors, medical professionals, different Instagram accounts you can follow. There's a lot of different ways to kind of get help and have good reminders, that's kind of what's going on. And it's a nice kind of break if you are having a struggle through the day, just to do those types of things. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you can take something away from this. But just in general, just know that it's okay to have bad days, and it's not the end of the world.